On a crisp autumn evening, when the air whispered secrets of falling leaves and promises of change, everything felt like a carefully composed symphony. The subtle chill in the breeze urged you to pull your jacket a little closer, as if nature itself conspired to remind you of the beauty in every shiver. In a modest apartment that pulsed with the warmth of close friends and shared laughter, the stage was set for a birthday celebration unlike any other. Yet beneath the jovial chatter and the clink of glasses, there lingered a quiet, persistent undercurrent, a sense of isolation and mystery that refused to be ignored. In the midst of the festive glow, a young woman celebrating her 21st birthday found herself standing at the intersection of joy and melancholy. Though the room buzzed with energy and laughter, she felt an inexplicable solitude, as if her heart was attuned to a different rhythm, one that beat in silent discord with the surrounding revelry. Being the only human in a town where werewolves ruled the night added layers of complexity to her emotions. It was a strange dichotomy, the familiar comfort of human warmth against the enigmatic, untamed world of the supernatural. Her eyes, however, couldn't help but wander. Across the room, framed by the soft glow of vintage lamps, stood Liam, the beta of the Blue Ridge pack, and a quiet enigma in his own right. His piercing blue gaze, as distant as a star yet burning with unspoken intensity, stirred something deep within her. Every time she looked at him, it was as if he existed in a realm of his own, separated by a million miles of silent longing and forbidden dreams. His presence was a paradox, both comforting and achingly elusive, like the echo of a melody remembered long after the song has ended. As the evening unfolded, the laughter crescendoed, and then began to ebb like the tide retreating from the shore, leaving behind a hushed expectancy. In that quiet lull, her thoughts spiraled into a maze of inner conflict and secret wishes. She recalled the unspoken promise of a wish made each year, a silent plea for Liam to finally see her the way she saw him. It was a wish as old as her own tender years, laden with hope and the bittersweet taste of inevitable change. But tonight, as the candles flickered and the room's warmth wove a cocoon around her, she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that something monumental was about to occur. The gentle clatter of glasses, the soft murmur of conversations, and the distant echo of a favorite song all seemed to blend into a single, haunting refrain, a reminder of the delicate balance between comfort and isolation. The apartment, usually a sanctuary of familiar joy, now felt like a stage set for a revelation that would upend her carefully constructed world. The ambient light cast elongated shadows on the walls, hinting at secrets lurking just beyond the edge of perception. In this moment of fragile serenity, every detail was magnified. The rustle of fabric as a friend shifted in her seat, the quiet tapping of feet on the worn wooden floor, and the barely audible heartbeat that seemed to synchronize with the pulsating energy of the room. It was as if time itself had slowed, allowing her to taste every fleeting moment, the bittersweet blend of laughter and the unsaid words that clung to the corners of her mind. She could almost feel the weight of destiny pressing upon her, a silent force that both comforted and terrified her. Amid the convivial atmosphere, there was a distinct, unspoken question that hovered in the air. Who would be there for her when the echoes of this night faded into memory? The uncertainty of human connection, set against the backdrop of a supernatural world, lent an eerie quality to her celebrations. It was a feeling of being both seen and unseen, a delicate dance of desire and denial that resonated deep within her soul. This warm, inviting introduction was more than just the start of a birthday party. It was the prologue to an extraordinary journey, a tale of hidden identities, forbidden attractions, and the relentless pull of fate. The stage was perfectly set for the unfolding drama, with every flicker of candlelight and every whisper of the autumn wind hinting at secrets that would soon unravel. In the quiet moments between laughter and silence, the lines between reality and fantasy began to blur, inviting the audience to step into a world where every heartbeat carried a story, and every shadow held a promise of transformation. As the night deepened and the celebration began to quiet, the undercurrent of mystery grew stronger, setting the stage for an unforgettable tale of internal struggle, undeniable passion, and the relentless search for belonging in a world where nothing was quite as it seemed. As the party swirled around her in a cascade of laughter and gentle clinking of glasses, she found herself drawn into a quiet corner of her own mind, a private space where her heartbeat quickened at the mere thought of Liam. Amid the cheerful chaos, every moment felt like it was slipping away, each second charged with a bittersweet longing. In that brief pause between bursts of laughter and the soft murmur of conversations, she closed her eyes and whispered a wish into the cool evening air. "Let Liam see me the way I see him." That simple, earnest plea, so intimate and fragile, echoed in the silent recesses of her soul. It was a wish that had taken root in her heart since she was a mere teenager, a secret desire nurtured in the quiet moments before the dawn. Tonight, it held the weight of hope and vulnerability, as if it could somehow bridge the chasm between her visible world and the hidden depths of her yearning. The sound of her own breath mingled with the soft background hum, creating a symphony of emotion that was both tender and raw. Even as the room around her was alive with the festive spirit of a birthday celebration, her thoughts remained tethered to Liam, a presence both near and yet unattainably distant. His elusive gaze had long been a source of wonder and quiet torment. It was as if every time their eyes met, a silent message was exchanged, a promise of connection that was never fully realized. She could recall the brief moments when his eyes, a stormy mix of mystery and sorrow, had flickered toward her, only to be swallowed up by a wall of reserved indifference. In those instances, her heart had soared with fragile hope, only to be pulled back by the harsh reality of his aloofness. The room, with its warm golden light and the soft hum of friendly chatter, began to feel like an intricate dance between joy and solitude. Around her, smiles and laughter created a comforting blanket. Yet beneath that vibrant surface, she sensed an undercurrent of isolation. As the evening advanced, the sound of music softened, and the boisterous conversations started to ebb away. The magic of the night transformed into a delicate interplay of emotions. It was in this quiet descent that her inner conflict became most palpable. Each fading note of celebration underscored the gap between her outward cheer and the inward ache of unfulfilled longing. She stood there for a long moment, feeling both a part of the crowd and yet infinitely removed from it. The soft glow of candles and the gentle flicker of fairy lights seemed to mock her internal struggle. The brightness of the party could not illuminate the shadowed corners of her heart, where desire and doubt mingled. With every tick of the clock, she felt the festive energy gradually wane, as if the night itself was bidding farewell to her secret hope. Each departure of a friend, each diminishing echo of laughter, only deepened the resonance of her wish, a wish that was as fragile as the whisper of the wind, yet as potent as the most powerful storm. In that twilight hour, her thoughts wandered to the countless times she had silently hoped for Liam's attention. She remembered the way his eyes would briefly meet hers from across the room, a fleeting glimpse that left her both elated and sorrowful. It was as if every look was a promise of more, a secret understanding that could change everything, if only it were nurtured into something real. But the elusive nature of his gaze had always left her with more questions than answers, the silence stretching out long after the moment had passed. Even as the party's vibrancy began to dim, the memory of that wish, uttered with such raw sincerity, clung to her like a delicate veil. The anticipation of what the night might yet hold stirred a quiet excitement within her, mingling with an undercurrent of apprehension. Could this birthday, this sacred night of fleeting yet intense connection, mark a turning point? Would the fading laughter and departing guests leave behind a space for truth and vulnerability to emerge? In the soft light of the waning celebration, every whispered goodbye and every reluctant glance in the mirror reminded her that the heart is a stubborn, relentless force. Even as the joyful noise receded into a gentle hush, the echo of her wish lingered, a tender yet defiant call for a love unspoken, for a gaze that saw beyond the surface and into the depths of her soul. In that moment, she realized that the beauty of the night was not merely in its festive glow, but in its capacity to expose the raw, unfiltered truths of the heart. The party was winding down, but the promise of a new beginning, the hope that perhaps one day Liam might truly see her, burned quietly within her. It was a longing that danced on the edge of despair and delight, a yearning so palpable that it could transform every sigh and every tear into a testament to the strength of the human spirit. And so, in the fading echo of a birthday wish, the night closed in, leaving her suspended between what was and what might yet be. In the midst of tidying up after the dwindling laughter and fading music of the party, a sudden knock at the door shattered the fragile calm. She paused, her heart skipping a beat, as if the sound carried a secret that could forever change the course of the night. With hesitant steps, she moved toward the door, the quiet hum of the empty room echoing behind her. Opening it, she was met by the unexpected sight of a delivery boy, his friendly smile belying the weight of the mystery he bore. In his hands lay a small, unassuming package wrapped neatly in plain paper. There was no sender's name on the envelope, no hint of the origin of this curious gift. With trembling fingers, she accepted the package and thanked him before closing the door, the sound of his footsteps fading into the night. Her mind began to race as she returned to her cleaning, her thoughts now inextricably linked with the mystery of this delivery. Slowly, with an almost ritualistic care, she unwrapped the package. Nestled within layers of soft tissue paper was a stunning silver bracelet, its surface catching the low light and reflecting tiny sparks of silver, like distant stars. Attached to it, in a handwritten note on delicate parchment, was a message that stopped her heart for a moment. "Happy birthday, Mara. Leonardo." The simple signature, Leonardo, echoed through her memory like a long-forgotten melody. Leonardo, the powerful and enigmatic alpha, the silent guardian who had once saved her from a ferocious threat, had not been seen in her life for months. His name stirred a tumult of emotions within her, a blend of relief, longing, and a haunting sense of both protection and peril. As she held the note close, the cool silver of the bracelet against her skin, a myriad of conflicting feelings overwhelmed her. The bracelet, exquisitely crafted, seemed less like a mere accessory and more like a talisman, a symbol of a connection that transcended the ordinary. It was a reminder of that fateful night when Leonardo's intervention had saved her life, a moment etched deep in her heart, both tender and traumatic. Now, this unexpected gift arrived on her birthday, intertwining the threads of her past with the present in a way that felt both beautiful and dangerous. Her mind raced with questions. Why now, after so many months of silence? Had Leonardo been watching over her all this time, silently guiding her steps even from afar? The arrival of this gift carried a weight of destiny, as though it were the opening act of a long-awaited chapter in her life, one filled with both hope and foreboding. The note's brevity made the message all the more potent. There was no flourish, no overt declaration, just a simple wish for a happy birthday and a signature that carried the power of his unspoken promise. The silver bracelet shimmered softly as she ran her fingers along its delicate links, each movement stirring up memories of their past encounters. In those moments, the warmth of his presence seemed to envelope her, as if he were there beside her in the quiet solitude of her room. Yet, that comforting illusion was quickly tempered by a shadow of uncertainty. The bracelet was both a gift and a reminder, a delicate token of a connection that was as enigmatic as it was compelling. Her heart pounded with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The gift, so unexpected and yet so intimately tied to a man who had once been her savior, ignited a spark of hope within her. But with it came the bittersweet reminder of what had been lost, of promises unfulfilled and secrets kept hidden in the depths of their past. The delicate silver glint of the bracelet seemed to whisper of hidden intentions and unspoken desires, inviting her to step once more into a world of passion and peril, of love that defied all boundaries. In that quiet moment, with the night winding down and the remnants of the party dissolving into silence, she felt a stirring of something profound within her, a call to confront the swirling emotions that had long been buried beneath the surface. The mysterious delivery was a turning point, a subtle yet powerful push toward a destiny that she had both feared and longed for. It was an invitation to explore the delicate balance between vulnerability and strength, between the comfort of familiar warmth and the raw, unpredictable power of love. As she carefully slipped the bracelet onto her wrist, she couldn't help but feel that the night had suddenly transformed into something altogether different. An evening where every quiet whisper and every fading light held the promise of a new beginning, a twist in the tale that would leave an indelible mark on her heart. As the silver bracelet's cool gleam faded from her fingertips, the soft warmth of the earlier celebration began to dissolve into an unsettling hush. The once cheerful apartment, now bathed in the gentle glow of twilight, seemed to hold its breath. Outside, the autumn wind grew erratic, whispering secrets that sent shivers along the spine of the night. Shadows lengthened and merged, creating eerie silhouettes that danced across the walls, a silent prelude to the darkness that was about to descend. The air shifted abruptly. What had been a gentle caress of coolness turned harsh and biting, as if the very atmosphere was warning her of an impending storm. She paused mid-cleanup, her ears straining for the source of the sudden disquiet. A low, guttural growl, deep and resonant, threaded through the wind, sending an icy thrill down her spine. It was a sound both primal and foreboding, an omen of something wild and dangerous, lurking just beyond the threshold of familiar safety. In the dim light near the window, her eyes caught movement, a pair of luminous yellow orbs that pierced the darkness with an unyielding intensity. They glowed with a predatory focus, fixed on her as if marking her presence for reasons unknown. The subtle murmur of the wind was now interwoven with the sound of leaves rustling in a frantic dance, while the once comforting murmur of the city had faded into a heavy silence. Every sense was heightened, the rustling outside, the chill that now crept beneath her skin, and the inexplicable tension that vibrated in the very air around her. Before she could gather her scattered thoughts, a sudden, violent shattering of glass jolted her into full awareness. The window exploded outward, fragments of glass scattering like deadly confetti across the floor. In that heart-stopping instant, a massive snarling wolf burst through the broken pane. Its fur bristled in the erratic light, matted and wild, eyes burning with a feral, inhuman glare. The creature's snarls filled the space with a chilling resonance as its powerful jaws snapped and its razor-sharp claws slashed through the air. The protagonist's heart thundered in her chest as raw, unfiltered terror gripped her. Her mind raced. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet she was frozen, caught in the vortex of the unfolding nightmare. The rogue wolf lunged at her with a savage, almost unstoppable force, its claws raking across her skin. Pain exploded in her arm, a searing electric agony that radiated through her nerves. She screamed, a raw, desperate sound lost amid the chaos, as she flailed wildly, trying to push back against the crushing weight of the beast. Every detail was etched in high definition, the bitter tang of fear on her tongue, the acrid scent of disturbed air mingling with the smell of blood and sweat, and the blur of the wolf's snarling visage as it closed in on her. Time seemed to slow, each agonizing second stretching into an eternity where every heartbeat pounded with the intensity of a war drum. Her body trembled, muscles coiled in a futile attempt to escape, yet the relentless assault left her struggling in its vice-like grip. Just as the overwhelming terror threatened to pull her completely under, the atmosphere shattered once more, this time with a force of unexpected savior energy. A sudden, thunderous crash from across the room drowned out her cries, a powerful sound that reverberated through the space with undeniable authority. The rogue wolf, caught off guard by this new intrusion, hesitated for a fleeting moment, a split-second pause that felt like an eternity in the midst of chaos. In that suspended moment, as the beast's vicious eyes widened in confusion, an unseen force swept into the room like a tempest. The air crackled with raw energy and a promise of deliverance. Her vision blurred for an instant as she tried to focus on the incoming figure, her mind grasping at the thread of hope that this unexpected savior might be the one to pull her from the brink of despair. With a decisive burst of movement that cut through the tension like a blade, the intruder engaged the wolf. The ensuing struggle was a maelstrom of chaos and raw power, a dance of violence and urgency that held her breath in a vice-like grip. Every instinct told her that this moment would redefine her destiny, but before she could fully comprehend the emerging scene, the image of her mysterious protector was consumed by the storm of battle, leaving her suspended in a cliffhanger of hope and uncertainty. In the heart of the darkness, with the rogue wolf's threat still echoing in her mind, and the promise of a savior's intervention lingering in the charged air, she found herself teetering on the edge of an unknown fate. The night, once filled with soft laughter and gentle celebration, had transformed into a battleground of primal fury and desperate hope, a turning point from which there might be no return. In the midst of the chaos, the air vibrated with the sound of a force that was both fearsome and resolute, a force that swept into the room like a tidal wave of destiny. Before her eyes could fully register the terror of the rogue wolf's attack, the door burst open with an almost divine fury. There, framed in the flickering light of shattered glass and swirling shadows, stood Leonardo. His presence was breathtaking, a figure carved from raw power and silent determination, exuding an aura that seemed to command the very elements around him. Without a moment's hesitation, Leonardo advanced. In the blink of an eye, his form began to shift, a mesmerizing, almost sacred transformation that blurred the lines between man and beast. His dark, intense eyes glowed with an inner fire as his silhouette rippled with the raw muscles of his wolf form. The change was both swift and graceful, a melding of human intellect and animalistic prowess. Every fiber of his being radiated, a primal authority, as if the heavens had chosen him to be the guardian against the encroaching darkness. As his transformation reached its peak, Leonardo's features grew wild and untamed. His hair, now more like a mane, framed a face set in unwavering resolve. The very air around him crackled with energy, carrying whispers of ancient power and silent oaths sworn in the deep of night. With a thunderous snarl, he lunged forward, a swift, lethal motion that left no time for the rogue wolf to reconsider its aggression. The wolf, momentarily taken aback by the sudden shift, hesitated. Leonardo's formidable presence struck like lightning. With an almost otherworldly grace, he met the creature head-on. His claws, now gleaming like sharpened silver, sliced through the air with precision. The rogue wolf's advance was met with a barrage of swift, decisive blows that echoed through the room like a battle hymn. Each strike was a testament to Leonardo's strength, his movements a seamless blend of calculated ferocity and instinctive mastery. In that critical moment, time seemed to warp around her. The protagonist, still reeling from the shock, could only watch as Leonardo danced in the fray, a creature of raw might, dispatching the threat with a fluid, almost poetic brutality. The creature's snarls and the rapid rustle of fur filled her ears, yet all she could register was the fierce, unwavering determination in Leonardo's eyes. His intervention was not merely a rescue, it was a declaration, a silent vow that no harm would befall her while he stood as her protector. As the rogue wolf staggered back, wounded and disoriented by Leonardo's relentless assault, a brief hush fell over the tumultuous scene. The transformed alpha towered over the fallen threat, his chest heaving with controlled intensity. His eyes, still glowing with the heat of battle, locked onto hers, a look that conveyed both triumph and a depth of emotion that transcended the ferocity of the fight. For one fleeting moment, the wild savagery of his transformation gave way to a tenderness that seemed almost ethereal. It was as if, in the midst of the storm, he had reached out with an unspoken promise, a quiet affirmation of his unwavering care for her. The impact of his rescue sent shockwaves through her, mingling her lingering terror with an overwhelming rush of relief and gratitude. Her heart pounded in her ears, its rhythm a wild, chaotic counterpoint to the echo of Leonardo's fierce roars. She could scarcely believe the intensity of what she had witnessed. A man, a guardian, who could become both the tempest and the shelter in the heart of a nightmare. The contrast was jarring. The raw, untamed force of his wolf form, and the gentleness in his gaze as it met hers. A glimpse of vulnerability that softened the edges of his otherwise formidable presence. In that suspended moment, as Leonardo's powerful figure loomed over the defeated rogue, the lingering chaos of shattered glass and echoing snarls faded into a haunting silence. The battleground of the room was bathed in a chiaroscuro of flickering, light and lingering shadows, each moment etched with the promise of both salvation and sorrow. The visceral reality of the attack, the fury of the beast, and the unyielding strength of his savior melded into one singular, profound memory, a memory that would forever alter the course of her destiny. Yet, as her vision began to blur at the edges and darkness threatened to claim her once more, the comforting warmth of Leonardo's protective presence held her tight. In that final, breathless instant, as the last echoes of the battle receded, she clung to the tender reassurance in his eyes, a beacon in the darkness, a silent vow that even as the night grew perilous, she would not be left to face it alone. When her eyes fluttered open, the world that greeted her was nothing like the familiar surroundings of her little apartment. Instead, she found herself in an opulent, almost otherworldly fortress, bathed in soft golden light. The plush bedding, intricately carved wooden panels, and the gentle hum of a distant fountain all spoke of luxury and a history steeped in both power and mystery. Yet, even amidst such grandeur, a profound disorientation gripped her. Every detail of this new reality was at once both captivating and utterly alien. Her body throbbed with a dull, persistent pain, a stark reminder of the brutal encounter with the rogue wolf. The bite on her arm seared with a burning ache that pulsed in time with her racing heartbeat, each throb an unwelcome testament to the night's violent events. She tried to move, but her limbs felt heavy, as if weighted by the burden of an unseen force. The silky sheets beneath her did little to soothe the raw sting of her wounds, instead contrasting painfully with the harsh reality of her physical trauma. As she slowly sat up, her vision blurred, and her mind swirled with fragments of memories, the snarl of the wolf, the shattering of glass, and the fierce, almost divine intervention of Leonardo. The fortress room, elegant in every detail, now felt like both a sanctuary and a prison, its silence echoing with unspoken questions about her fate. The opulence was comforting in a way, yet it carried a cold, austere note that only deepened her internal turmoil. Before she could gather her scattered thoughts, a calm yet urgent voice broke through the haze of pain and disbelief. It was Leonardo. He stood nearby, his presence steady and reassuring, despite the lingering tension of battle. His eyes, which had shone with wild fury moments before, now held a somber, almost paternal kindness. In a measured tone that belied the chaos of the night, he said, "You were bitten, Mara. Your transformation has begun." His words struck her like a shockwave. Transformation? The word reverberated in her mind, clashing with every ounce of her understanding of herself as merely human. Disbelief mingled with an inexplicable sense of dread. Leonardo's declaration was both a promise of protection and a harbinger of the profound changes to come. It was as if the very fabric of her existence was now being rewoven, the threads of her human life merging with the wild, untamed essence of the pack. As his words sank in, she felt the weight of a reality that she had long resisted. the undeniable truth that she could no longer remain on the fringes of a world dominated by those who were not like her. The luxurious fortress, with its majestic halls and serene courtyards, now loomed as a symbol of her new destiny. There was an eerie beauty in this transition, a cruel irony that in the midst of such splendor, she would have to confront a life where her very nature was altered. Leonardo moved closer, his expression softening further as he saw the raw pain and confusion etched on her face. "I brought you here for your safety, Mira. You must understand that this is not punishment, but a necessary step for you to survive among us." His words were gentle, yet laced with an urgency that left no room for denial. Every syllable was a reminder of the precarious balance between the world she had known and the one she was being forced to join. Her mind raced as she tried to process the magnitude of his revelation. Images of her past, of fleeting glances with Liam, of secret wishes whispered into the night, of that brutal moment when the wolf had attacked, merged with the stark reality of her current state. Questions bubbled up. How could this be? Was she truly meant to become part of the pack? And what would this transformation mean for her heart, already so entangled in the complexities of love and loss? Leonardo's calm presence, though reassuring, could not fully dispel the storm raging inside her. The pain in her arm was a physical reminder of the irreversible step she had taken. It throbbed, each pulse echoing the tumult of her inner world. The transformation was not just a bodily change. It was the merging of her human vulnerabilities with the fierce, raw instincts of a werewolf. It was a metamorphosis that carried with it both an ominous promise and a glimmer of hope, a chance at becoming something stronger, yet forever altered. In that moment, as the fortress walls seemed to close in around her, she was forced to confront the truth that her life had irrevocably changed. The safety of the known was now replaced by the unpredictable pulse of a world where every heartbeat held the potential for both beauty and danger. Leonardo's words, delivered with such steady conviction, marked the beginning of her journey into an uncertain future. A future where she must navigate the delicate dance between human fragility and the wild, untamed spirit of the pack. And so, with her mind swirling in a maelstrom of disbelief and burgeoning determination, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The darkness of that fateful night had given way to a new, daunting reality, one that beckoned her with both the promise of salvation and the peril of irrevocable change. Leonardo's gaze softened as he regarded her with a quiet intensity that belied the storm of emotions swirling within him. In the dim light of the fortress chamber, his voice, steady yet tinged with regret, broke through the silence. "I brought you here for your safety, Mira," he began, each word measured and deliberate. "You needed to join our pack long ago, not as a punishment, but as a means to protect yourself. I warned you, but you chose to walk your own path." Her heart clenched as his words resonated with the painful truth of their past. Deep inside, she felt the sting of regret for not heeding his advice when she still believed she could handle the world on her own. There was defiance in her eyes, a spark that refused to be dimmed, but it was tempered by vulnerability. She knew now that her resistance had only prolonged the inevitable transformation and deepened the wounds within her soul. Leonardo stepped closer, his presence a blend of raw power and gentle compassion. "I never wanted to see you suffer, Mira. Every moment you fought to remain apart from us, you were fighting against your own destiny. I understand the fear that drove you, the desire to cling to what was familiar. But sometimes, the heart must take a leap into the unknown, even if it means risking everything." His voice, layered with sorrow and determination, wrapped around her like a protective shroud. As he spoke, she could feel the pulse of her new reality in every beat of her heart. The pain from the bite throbbed beneath her skin, a constant reminder of the change that had been set in motion. It was as if the very essence of her being was being reshaped, both a blessing and a curse. The realization brought a flood of conflicting emotions: anger at her own stubbornness, sorrow for the innocence lost, and a tentative hope that perhaps, in embracing this change, she might find a strength she never knew she possessed. Leonardo's eyes glistened with a mix of regret and reassurance. "I'm sorry, Mara," he murmured, reaching out to gently touch her hand. "I wish I could have convinced you sooner. You were so determined to prove that you could survive on your own. But sometimes survival isn't enough. You deserve to thrive, to be protected, to feel truly alive in every sense." His words, sincere and unyielding, cut through the layers of her internal conflict, stirring something deep within her. Her mind raced back to all those moments of quiet defiance, when she had brushed off his warnings, insisting that she was fine on her own, that she could navigate this world without the guidance of those who understood its wild nature. Now, as the cool night air seeped through the fortress walls and her senses sharpened beyond what she'd ever imagined, she felt both the sting of regret and the budding promise of a new beginning. There was a raw honesty in her eyes as she met his, a silent admission of her past errors, and a cautious willingness to embrace what lay ahead. "I'm sorry too," she whispered, her voice a fragile blend of sorrow and determination. "I thought I could do it alone, that I didn't need you or anyone to protect me. But I see now, I was wrong. I should have listened." Her confession was not an admission of defeat, but rather a quiet acknowledgement of her human frailty and the need for connection, a need that ran deeper than pride ever could. Leonardo squeezed her hand in gentle reassurance, his touch igniting a warmth that countered the chill of her lingering doubts. "It's not too late, Mara. We can face this together. The pack is not just a place of survival, it's a family, and you belong here, with us. I promise you, I will do everything in my power to keep you safe." His words resonated in the silent chamber, a vow that bridged the gap between his strength and her vulnerability. As night deepened around them, the fortress seemed to breathe with a quiet, enduring energy. Shadows danced on ornate walls, and the faint sound of the wind whispered through the corridors, carrying with it hints of both melancholy and hope. In that delicate balance between darkness and light, her heightened senses came alive. Every sound, every touch, every whispered word seemed magnified, echoing the internal tumult of a heart caught between regret and a yearning for redemption. For a long, suspended moment, she allowed herself to trust in Leonardo's promise, a promise of safety amidst the transformation, a beacon guiding her through the uncharted realms of her new existence. Uncertainty still clung to the edges of her mind, but beneath it all, a tentative hope blossomed. A hope that in surrendering to the pack, she might finally find the strength and love she had been seeking all along. And as the night wrapped its cool embrace around them, she realized that perhaps, in accepting the inevitability of change, she could begin to heal and, in time, thrive. In the cool hush of early morning, the fortress's grand hall transformed into a sanctuary of subtle revelations, a place where every whisper of sound and every flicker of light became a gateway to a new way of being. Leonardo led her to a quiet, open courtyard, where the soft dew on the grass and the gentle murmur of distant wildlife seemed to awaken her dormant senses. Here, the training began, not with loud declarations or forceful commands, but with an invitation to listen deeply to the world around her. As she closed her eyes at Leonardo's gentle instruction, the first sensation that enveloped her was the sound, a symphony of nature that had always played in the background, now emerging in startling clarity. The rustle of leaves, previously a mere backdrop to everyday noise, resonated like a delicate, intricate melody. Each whisper of the wind was a distinct note, every distant bird call a reminder of the vibrant life hidden within the silence. Leonardo's calm voice guided her through this auditory awakening. "Listen, Mara. Let the world speak to you. It's in these soft sounds that your new senses will find their strength." Slowly, as her breathing deepened, she began to notice the subtleties that had always been overlooked. The cool, crisp scent of damp earth mingled with the faint, sweet aroma of night-blooming flowers, each breath drawing her further into the realm of heightened awareness. The odors were no longer indistinct. They formed a layered tapestry of nature's secrets, urging her to embrace the connection between her body and the wild environment. Leonardo's presence was like a steady beacon, both reassuring and intense. As he moved gracefully beside her, his own heightened senses seemed to guide her, subtly touching her arm in a gesture that was both instructional and intimate. His hand, warm against her skin, transmitted a silent message. Trust this process. Trust yourself. With every gentle touch, every reassuring look, the bond between them deepened, though words were scarcely needed. Their connection was expressed through shared silence and mutual understanding, a language of sensation that was as profound as it was wordless. The training then shifted to tactile awareness. Leonardo showed her how to ground herself, to let her body become an instrument tuned to the subtle cues of the natural world. Feel the earth beneath you, he said softly, as he guided her to sink her bare feet into the cool, moist grass. The sensation was electrifying, a mix of softness and firmness that awakened memories of long-forgotten instincts. She could feel the texture of each blade of grass, the slight resistance of the soil, and even the gentle caress of a passing breeze on her skin. It was as if every touch was a conversation between her and the world, a dialogue that bridged the gap between her old human senses and this emerging primal awareness. Every moment in this training session was a revelation. Leonardo's steady instructions, interlaced with the natural symphony of the courtyard, built a rhythm that was both meditative and exhilarating. The intensity in his gaze, the delicate press of his hand against her shoulder, and the soft murmur of his voice as he corrected her posture, all combined to create an atmosphere of trust and intimacy. With each passing minute, her senses sharpened. She could distinguish the soft hum of insects hidden among the foliage, the whisper of her own heartbeat echoing through her veins, and the delicate interplay of light and shadow that danced across the ground. Yet, amid this calm and deliberate training, there was an undercurrent of something more, a stirring of emotions that hinted at a deeper connection between them. It was as if the natural world, in all its beauty and complexity, had become a mirror for the inner landscape of their hearts. Leonardo's eyes would occasionally meet hers, lingering with a look that suggested a promise, a shared secret beyond the practical lessons. In those fleeting moments, the space between instructor and student blurred, leaving behind a fragile, unspoken bond that was both comforting and mysterious. As the session drew to a close, the early light of dawn began to spread across the sky, casting long, gentle shadows that whispered of new beginnings. The cool morning air, filled with the scents and sounds of awakening life, wrapped around her like a soft embrace. In that serene moment, as she stood with her senses alive, and her mind quietly buzzing with newfound clarity, a spark of hope began to kindle within her. The promise of safety and strength in this unfamiliar, transformative world mingled with the bittersweet nostalgia for the life she once knew. She realized that the training was not merely about physical survival. It was a journey toward embracing a new identity, one that balanced vulnerability with fierce inner strength. The revelations of sound, smell, and touch were stepping stones, each one guiding her deeper into a realm where every sense was heightened and every emotion magnified. As she took one last deep breath, the silence of the dawn carrying the echoes of Leonardo's teachings, she understood that this was only the beginning, a threshold to a future where uncertainty and beauty coexisted, inviting her to step boldly into the unknown. The soft hum of the awakening courtyard was suddenly pierced by the sound of purposeful footsteps, drawing her attention to the far side of the open space. Emerging from the gentle shadows, a striking figure appeared, a woman whose presence radiated an unmistakable air of authority and mystery. Her stature was graceful yet formidable, her posture rigid with self-assurance. This was Carol, an older, woman whose piercing eyes swept over the scene with a calculated gaze, as if she were sizing up every detail with innate precision. Her arrival was quiet but commanding, each measured step resonating with an unspoken promise of power. Carol's attire, a perfectly tailored ensemble in deep dark hues, hinted at a life of discipline and refined strength. Her silver hair, pulled back into a neat chignon, accentuated the sharp lines of her face, giving her a timeless quality that seemed both intimidating and strangely alluring. There was something almost hypnotic about the way she carried herself, a mix of elegance and latent danger that immediately disrupted the fragile balance of the morning's training session. As Carol drew near, the air itself seemed to shift as though nature acknowledged her presence. The vibrant sounds of the courtyard paused momentarily, and even the gentle rustling of leaves appeared to hush in respect. Leonardo's eyes, always perceptive, briefly met Carol's, and an unspoken understanding passed between them, a fleeting glimpse into a shared past or secret alliance. Yet, her intentions remained as enigmatic as the midnight shadows that clung to the ancient walls of the fortress. "Good morning, Mira," Carol said, her voice smooth and resonant, carrying both warmth and an edge of warning. There was no trace of overt friendliness in her tone. Instead, her greeting was measured, almost clinical, as though she were reciting a well-practiced line. Her gaze shifted to Leonardo, lingering a moment longer than necessary, leaving behind a subtle, disconcerting question. Who was Carol, really? And what role did she play in the intricate tapestry of the pack? Mira's heart skipped a beat as she absorbed the unexpected intrusion. There was a familiarity in Carol's eyes, a hint of past encounters and unspoken connections, that stirred both curiosity and a quiet unease deep within her. Leonardo offered a brief nod of acknowledgement, his features betraying nothing, but the air around them seemed to thicken with tension. Carol's arrival was not merely a disruption. It was an intrusion into the delicate new world Mira was beginning to understand, a world where every nuance of power and trust mattered. Without missing a beat, Carol continued, her words both smooth and laden with ambiguity. I heard there have been whispers in the wind, rumors that a certain young woman is beginning to awaken to her true nature. I wanted to see it for myself. Her tone was light, yet every syllable was charged with a deeper significance, hinting at a network of eyes that watched over the pack's every move. There was an unsettling quality to her smile, a curl of the lips that hinted at secrets too weighty to be spoken aloud. It was clear that Carol was no mere outsider. She was intricately woven into the fabric of the pack's existence, a silent force whose motives were shrouded in layers of intrigue. Mira felt a chill ripple through her, the delicate equilibrium of her newfound training disrupted by the sudden, unanticipated presence of this commanding figure. The soft hum of the courtyard, the reassuring guidance of Leonardo, even the vibrant stirrings of her heightened senses, all seemed to recede into a background murmur as she focused on Carol's penetrating gaze. In that moment, every instinct told her that the woman was here for a reason, beyond casual curiosity, a reason that might reshape the contours of her destiny. As Carol's eyes met hers once more, there was a fleeting flash of something unreadable. Was it concern, ambition, or perhaps a cold calculation? Her intentions, cloaked in mystery, left Mira with more questions than answers. The pack is changing, Carol murmured, almost to herself, her voice barely audible yet strikingly clear. And with change comes both promise and peril. Her words, cryptic as they were, hinted at alliances and rivalries that went far beyond the surface of what Mira had experienced so far. Before anyone could press further, Carol adjusted her posture and offered a curt nod. I trust that Leonardo will guide you well today, she said, her tone now coolly detached. With that, she turned and slipped back into the shadows from whence she came. leaving behind an atmosphere thick with uncertainty and a lingering question that hung in the air like a whispered secret. In the wake of Carol's abrupt departure, the courtyard seemed to exhale, the natural rhythm of sounds slowly resuming. Yet, for Mira, the encounter left a resonant echo, a profound sense that something significant was unfolding, one that would challenge her perceptions of safety, loyalty, and the very nature of her transformation. As she stood there, her mind, whirled with unanswered questions about Carol's true purpose, and her heart, already stirred by the profound experiences of the night, beat faster with a mix of trepidation and reluctant curiosity. The promise of deeper mysteries now lay just beyond reach, inviting her to step further into a world where every shadow held a secret, and every encounter could be the spark that lit the flames of her destiny. In the quiet aftermath of Carol's enigmatic departure, the atmosphere in the fortress's courtyard shifted subtly, as if the very air were charged with unspoken allegiances and delicate rivalries. Leonardo remained a steadfast figure, his commanding presence filling the space with quiet assurance. Even as he resumed his guidance over her training, there was an undeniable aura of dominance in the way he carried himself. A serene, almost regal authority that spoke of years of experience and unyielding strength. His eyes, warm yet piercing, met hers occasionally, conveying silent messages that went far beyond the immediate instruction. Liam, in stark contrast, lingered at the periphery. His reticent presence was a study in subtle withdrawal. He observed from a distance with an intensity that was as much a part of him as his guarded silence. There was a lingering melancholy in his gaze, a blend of regret and unresolved tension that suggested his heart was heavy with unspoken words. Every so often, when his eyes caught hers, there was a fleeting moment, an almost imperceptible tightening of his expression that revealed the inner conflict he bore. His quiet demeanor, the way he kept to himself, spoke volumes about a past filled with hurt and hesitance. It was as though the space between them was marked by years of unfulfilled hope and misunderstood intentions. As she moved through her training exercises, the interplay between Leonardo's magnetic pull and Liam's distant sorrow tugged at her heart in conflicting ways. She felt drawn to Leonardo's strength and protective nature. His every movement, every word was imbued with a quiet confidence that made her feel safe and cherished. Yet, at the same time, the familiar presence of Liam stirred a different kind of ache within her. A longing for what once was, for a connection that seemed to slip further away with every passing day. His eyes, though often averted, hinted at memories of shared moments and secret smiles, moments that now seemed to belong to a past she could scarcely recall. In between the rhythmic cadence of training and the soft murmur of the early morning, subtle gestures and glances wove a tapestry of unspoken communication. Leonardo's gentle corrections of her posture, his reassuring touch on her arm as he guided her movements, carried the weight of a mentor who cared deeply for her well-being. His presence was both comforting and invigorating, a magnetic force that made her pulse quicken with the promise of something profound yet unspoken. In contrast, Liam's interactions were marked by a delicate reserve, an almost pained reluctance to bridge the gap between them. His occasional glances, filled with a mixture of longing and sorrow, whispered of a world where their hearts might have once intertwined, but now stood divided by circumstance and silent misgivings. Even the after-effects of Carol's visit lingered in the background, a calculating gaze that seemed to hover just out of sight, watching every subtle interaction with keen interest. Her silent scrutiny, though not overtly intrusive, added an undercurrent of tension to the scene. It was as if she were silently weighing the shifting loyalties within the pack, her presence a reminder that every relationship, every connection, was part of a larger, intricate web of power and ambition. The protagonist's own heart was a battleground of conflicting emotions. Torn between the magnetic allure of Leonardo's protective dominance and the familiar, yet painful, distance of Liam's sorrowful presence, she felt as though she were standing at a crossroads of fate, Each glance from Leonardo filled her with a quiet hope, a promise of safety, of belonging, of becoming something more than she ever dared to imagine. At the same time, the subtle, wistful looks exchanged with Liam tugged at her, stirring memories of a gentler past that she wasn't sure she wanted to recapture. As the morning light deepened into a gentle glow, hinting at the promise of a new day, Leonardo's calm voice broke through her tumultuous thoughts. "We will continue your training today, Mira," he announced, his tone a blend of reassurance and firm resolve. His words, simple yet profound, carried the promise of further revelations, of sharpening her newfound senses and delving deeper into the mysteries of her transformation. In that moment, as she stood between the contrasting energies of Leonardo and Liam, a delicate anticipation welled up within her. The impending training session, with all its potential for emotional and sensory discovery, promised not only to hone her physical abilities, but also to unlock the deeper layers of her heart. With her senses still heightened from the morning's lessons and her mind swirling with the complexities of loyalty and longing, she knew that the path ahead would be fraught with both challenge and unexpected tenderness. The stage was set for a day of profound discovery, one that might finally bridge the chasm between her conflicting emotions, and perhaps, in time, reveal the true depth of connection that lay hidden in the shadows of her past. In the gentle glow of the early morning, as soft light crept through the high, arched windows of the training hall, Leonardo led her into a sanctuary of transformation. The space was both simple and profound, a quiet arena where every whispered sound and every subtle movement promised renewal. Here, the only sounds were the soft rustle of fabric and the measured, calming cadence of Leonardo's voice, guiding her through a series of sensory exercises designed to awaken not just her physical body, but the deepest recesses of her heart. Leonardo's touch was gentle yet deliberate as he adjusted her posture. With careful hands, he guided her to stand straight, to feel the pull of gravity anchoring her to the earth beneath. "Breathe, Mira," he murmured, his tone soft like a lullaby. "Let the world fill your senses. Listen to the silence. Feel the heartbeat of the earth." In that moment, his fingers brushed lightly against her arm, and the contact sent an electric warmth rippling through her skin, a tender reminder of his protective presence. It was as if every touch was a silent promise, a wordless assurance that she was not alone in this unfamiliar, transformative journey. As she followed his instructions, she began to notice the symphony of sensations that had long been hidden beneath the noise of everyday life. The whisper of a distant breeze, the subtle scent of dew-laden grass, and even the faint hum of the fortress walls all merged into a delicate melody. Each sound, each scent, carried its own secret message. With Leonardo's guidance, she learned to decipher these messages, discovering that every sensory detail was a bridge linking her past life to the raw, untamed potential of her new existence. Leonardo then led her to a section of the courtyard where the earth was soft and cool beneath her bare feet. "Feel the connection," he said, kneeling beside her as she pressed her toes into the damp soil. The sensation was both grounding and exhilarating, a reminder that her body was now a vessel for both human vulnerability and the fierce, enduring spirit of the pack. The cool earth seemed to pulse beneath her touch, its rhythm echoing the newfound cadence of her heartbeat. In that intimate communion with nature, the lines between mentor and student began to blur, replaced by a mutual, unspoken understanding. Throughout the session, Leonardo's quiet encouragement punctuated the exercise. His eyes, steady and earnest, watched her with a tenderness that both bolstered her confidence and stirred a stirring mixture of hope and uncertainty within her. "Good," he whispered, as she mastered a delicate balance, his voice imbued with both pride and gentle command. Each word felt like a caress, soothing the inner turmoil that had long plagued her. With every small victory, she sensed her internal world shifting, old fears softening, and new strength emerging from within. Yet, even as the physical training honed her senses, an emotional transformation was taking root. Every touch, every encouraging glance from Leonardo, wove invisible threads that began to bridge the growing chasm between the life she once knew and the one that beckoned her forward. The memory of her solitary past mingled with the promise of a future where she was an integral part of something greater, a family, a legacy, a wild, uncharted destiny. Leonardo's presence, steadfast and magnetic, served as both anchor and compass, guiding her toward a realization that perhaps her fate was not to be divided between two worlds, but to blend them in a harmonious, if turbulent, unity. As the training session drew to a close, the soft murmur of the dawn gave way to a quiet intensity. Standing in the center of the courtyard, her body alive with the electric sensations of transformation, she felt a profound mix of gratitude and trepidation. Leonardo's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, his gaze conveying a silent promise that every lesson, every new sensation, was a step toward a deeper, more authentic self. The space between her old life and the emerging reality of the pack seemed to pulse with potential. A chasm that might yet be bridged with time, trust, and the careful nurturing of these newfound senses. In the lingering silence, as the first rays of sunlight crowned the fortress in a gentle halo, a quiet question echoed in her mind, a question that hovered like a delicate wisp of smoke in the cool morning air. Could this training, this intimate communion of body and spirit, truly mend the fracture between who she once was and who she was destined to become? The promise of transformation was palpable, yet the uncertainty of fate remained, a tender, unresolved chord that vibrated deep within her, inviting her to step boldly into the unknown. The gentle rhythm of the morning began to give way to an undercurrent of tension that crackled like static in the air as she moved through the softly lit corridor back toward the main training area. A chill, not from the cool air, but from an emotion deeper and more insidious, slipped over her. It was then that she caught sight of Caroline, leaning casually against a column near the doorway. The woman's eyes, sharp and calculating, fixed on her with a mix of envy and something darker, an emotion that felt almost predatory in its intensity. Caroline's gaze was not the kind of look one could easily forget. It was laden with unspoken threats, whispered just at the edge of hearing, a promise that warned her of consequences if certain boundaries were crossed. In that fleeting moment, as the subtle hum of conversation faded into a charged silence, Caroline leaned in and murmured something indistinct but venomous. The words were lost in the din of the corridor, yet their weight pressed heavily on her heart. They cut through the fragile hope that had begun to bloom during her training, replacing it with a prickling sense of foreboding. Her thoughts immediately turned to Liam, whose reticent presence had always offered a semblance of comfort. Liam, with his steady yet sorrowful eyes and gentle manner, had once been a quiet anchor in her turbulent life. Yet now, every lingering glance he cast in her direction stirred up old memories of intimacy and trust that seemed to clash with the unmistakable pull of Leonardo's enigmatic dominance. The duality of her emotions felt like an impossible equation, one where each fraction of affection was balanced precariously by an equal measure of uncertainty and pain. In the crowded silence that followed Caroline's threat, her mind became a storm of conflicting emotions. On one hand, there was Liam, his familiar warmth and quiet devotion, a reminder of the simpler days when love was uncomplicated and gentle. On the other, there was Leonardo, whose magnetic presence and fierce intensity had awakened in her a sense of purpose and raw strength that both frightened and enthralled her. It was as if her heart was caught in a tug-of-war between two very different kinds of love, one that promised safety and constancy, and another that whispered of passion and transformation. She paused, her eyes flickering between the two figures, who now defined her inner world. Liam's distant, sorrowful gaze seemed to plead with her not to abandon the past, while Leonardo's intense, almost otherworldly look challenged her to embrace a destiny that transcended human limitations. The contrast was stark. Liam represented a haven of reliability, a familiar shore against life's unpredictable tides, whereas Leonardo embodied the wild, uncharted sea, full of both peril and promise. As she tried to steady her racing thoughts, the ambient light in the corridor seemed to dim, casting elongated shadows that merged with the muted colors of her memories. Each step she took felt heavy with the weight of unsaid words and unresolved affections. The tension in the air was palpable, and the soft echo of her footsteps mingled with the remnants of whispered threats from Caroline. Those threats, though, murmured quietly, reverberated within her, stirring a dormant anxiety about the fragility of her new existence. Leonardo's voice then broke through the silence, a firm, yet reassuring sound that drew her attention away from the tumult of her inner conflict. "Mira," he said quietly, his tone both commanding and tender. "Focus on what you are becoming." His words were a balm, a gentle push toward the future he envisioned for her. Yet they also reminded her of the chasm that lay between her past and her fate. Even as his presence emboldened her, the memory of Liam's unwavering care and the sting of Caroline's envious glare lingered like a shadow behind her every thought. In that charged moment, she wondered if the fissures in her heart could ever truly be healed. Could the steadfast, quiet love of Liam reconcile with the fierce, transformative allure of Leonardo? Or was she doomed to be torn between two worlds, a constant struggle between the comfort of the known and the thrilling uncertainty of the new? The question, heavy with unspoken desperation, pulsed in her mind as if echoing the rhythmic beat of her heart. As she resumed her walk toward the training grounds, the corridor seemed to whisper with the promise of further revelations. The unresolved tension between past loyalties and future possibilities hovered like a delicate wisp of smoke, ready to ignite at the slightest provocation. With each step, she braced herself for what was to come, an impending training session that promised not only to sharpen her senses, but also to delve deep into the tangled web of her emotions. In the quiet murmur of the fortress, as the first hints of afternoon light began to filter through the ornate windows, a silent, suspenseful question lingered in the air. Would this training, this intimate communion of body and spirit, be enough to mend the widening chasm between the love she once knew and the destiny that beckoned her forward? That evening, as twilight melted into the soft embrace of night, the grand dining hall of the fortress transformed into an intimate haven for quiet revelations. The table was set with delicate porcelain and crystal glasses that caught the fading light, scattering it into a constellation of tiny, shimmering reflections across the polished wood. The ambiance was warm, inviting, a stark contrast to the turbulent emotions that churned quietly within her. Leonardo sat across from her, his presence a comforting anchor in the gentle hush that enveloped the room. The low murmur of soft music, almost imperceptible, provided a tender backdrop to the unfolding scene. As the first course was served, their eyes met in a lingering gaze, a silent conversation passing between them, a language of shared glances and unspoken promises. His look was both gentle and probing, a quiet reassurance that he was there, fully present, to guide her through the darkness that had recently touched her soul. Between delicate bites of a well-prepared dish and the graceful clinking of cutlery, Leonardo's voice emerged softly. "Mira, you must know that every moment, every breath you take, you are becoming more of who you're meant to be," he said, his tone imbued with a rare tenderness that reached the depths of her being. His words were gentle caresses, each syllable soothing the fear that had long shadowed her heart. She listened, her mind echoing with both desire and apprehension, as if his voice were a beacon illuminating a path toward something both transformative and profoundly intimate. Her thoughts wandered like a quiet stream, flowing between the comfort of his protective embrace and the raw vulnerability of her inner world. She recalled the painful memories of isolation, the fierce longing for connection that had once left her feeling lost. And now, Here in this softly lit room, with Leonardo's steady, compassionate gaze fixed upon her, those emotions mingled, with an unexpected sense of hope. Yet even as desire kindled within her, a gentle fear lingered, whispering reminders of all that had been sacrificed to reach this delicate moment. As the courses changed, so too did the cadence of their conversation. Each word and gesture laden with layers of meaning. Leonardo's hand brushed against hers momentarily as he reached for his glass of wine, a fleeting touch that sent a shiver of both warmth and longing through her. In that subtle contact, she sensed a promise of solace, a silent vow that he would be her refuge amid the chaos of transformation. His eyes, soft and earnest, invited her to trust in the journey they were on together, even if the path was fraught with uncertainties. Between pauses in their conversation, their gazes held, conveying volumes of emotions that words could scarcely capture. In the space of those moments, the dinner table became an altar where secrets and hidden desires were laid bare without utterance. She found herself wrestling with an overwhelming tide of feelings, her desire to embrace this newfound strength, to surrender to the intimate pull of his reassurance, while a part of her clung to the remnants of a past life, filled with its own bittersweet memories. Leonardo's soft reassurances resonated in her mind, a gentle melody that stirred both passion and apprehension. "I know it is hard, Mira," he murmured during a quiet lull, his voice as smooth as the velvet night. "But within you lies a power that will guide you through even the darkest hours." His words, tender yet imbued with a quiet determination, seemed to illuminate the intricate interplay of light and shadow within her heart. They invited her to consider that the fear she felt was not a weakness, but a necessary counterbalance to the fierce rising desire that now burned within her. As the evening deepened, and the last of the meal was savored with thoughtful silence, an air of expectant calm settled over them. The soft glow of candlelight danced on their faces, casting gentle shadows that hinted at unspoken confessions. In that almost sacred stillness, Leonardo leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers in a way that felt both deliberate and profoundly intimate. "There is something I wish to share with you tonight," he whispered, the words hanging in the air like an invitation to step closer into the realm of truth. His voice, tender yet imbued with an unspoken intensity, left her heart fluttering with anticipation. Was it a confession of his own? A revelation of hidden depths that had long been guarded? Or was it a simple, heartfelt promise of things to come? A declaration that the gap between her past and her future could perhaps be bridged by the strength of their shared journey. In that charged moment, as the candlelight flickered and the soft strains of music lingered in the background, the room held its breath. The invitation in Leonardo's gaze was unmistakable, a call to lean in, to trust, to embrace the inevitable collision of desire and destiny. And as the night enveloped them in its quiet, mesmerizing embrace, she felt a stirring within her, a fragile yet unmistakable hope that tonight might be the beginning of something extraordinary, a moment that would forever alter the course of her life. Under the soft glow of a fading evening, time itself seemed to slow as Leonardo closed the distance between them. In a moment that felt both surreal and achingly real, he knelt before her, his eyes shining with an intensity that spoke of unspoken truths and deep, unyielding affection. The air around them was charged with electric anticipation, as if the very atmosphere awaited the merging of two souls on the brink of irrevocable change. "Mira," he began softly, his voice trembling with emotion yet steady in its purpose, "I have loved you in ways I never thought possible. In the silence between our shared glances, and in the whispers of the night, my heart has always belonged to you." His words, gentle and raw, seemed to dissolve the barriers that had long kept their feelings in the shadows. Every syllable was a tender confession, a plea wrapped in vulnerability and hope. As she gazed down at him, her heart pounded with a tumult of emotions, fear, longing, and a bittersweet recognition of all that might be lost or won in this very instant. Leonardo's hand reached out, his fingers brushing against her cheek in a touch so soft it felt like a promise. The simple act sent shivers cascading down her spine, igniting a spark that blurred the boundaries between pain and pleasure, between regret and desire. In the quiet intimacy of that charged moment, their lips met. A collision of softness and yearning that reverberated like a secret melody in the stillness of the room. The kiss was a tapestry woven from countless stolen moments, the warmth of his breath mingling with hers, the tender pressure of his hand as it cradled her face, the delicate interplay of vulnerability and strength that radiated from both of them. It was as if every unspoken word, every silent tear shed in solitude, had converged into this single, transformative act. The sensation was electric, each touch igniting a fire that surged through her veins, each heartbeat a drum of shared passion. In that kiss, she tasted not only the salt of her own longing, but also the subtle sweetness of his devotion, the mingling flavors of hope, and the promise of a future that defied the boundaries of their troubled past. The world around them fell away, leaving only the tender, consuming presence of Leonardo, his love an overwhelming force that both enveloped and transformed her. For a moment, the kiss deepened, as if time itself was holding its breath. Soft whispers, almost inaudible, escaped between them. A murmured declaration of affection, a shared promise that transcended the chaos of their uncertain lives. In those fleeting seconds, she felt as though she were witnessing the very essence of his soul laid bare, a raw, unfiltered expression of desire that was both beautiful and devastating. Every fiber of her being responded, resonating with a truth that she had long buried beneath layers of fear and hesitation. Yet, even as the kiss blossomed with the beauty of their shared vulnerability, a delicate tension lingered in the space between them, a silent question of what this moment would mean for the fragile relationships woven around them. The echoes of this kiss were destined to ripple outward, touching not only her heart, but also stirring the dormant feelings of those whose lives were intertwined with theirs. In that suspended moment, the past and future collided. The memory of a love once unspoken and the promise of a destiny that might finally bridge the chasm between them. When their lips finally parted, a lingering warmth remained, as if the very air had been infused with the magic of their connection. Leonardo slowly rose to his feet, his eyes still locked on hers, searching for an unspoken acknowledgement of the truth they had both embraced. The softness in his gaze belied the storm that lay beneath, a storm that would soon challenge the fragile peace they had begun to build. In the quiet aftermath, as the world resumed its steady rhythm around them, a single question hovered in the space between heartbeats. Would this kiss, this collision of tenderness and passion, be enough to mend the fractures of their past? Or would its reverberations ignite old wounds and new conflicts? The answer lay shrouded in uncertainty, a promise of both hope and peril that beckoned them toward a future where every touch, every glance, could reshape the destiny of their intertwined hearts. Almost as soon as the charged silence of that intimate moment faded, chaos erupted. The tender afterglow of Leonardo's kiss was shattered by the sudden, desperate intervention of Liam. His eyes, wild with anguish, flashed from shock to fury in an instant. "Mara, no!" he cried out, voice cracking with heartbreak as he lunged into the space between them. His hands, trembling yet insistent, reached out to pull her away from Leonardo, his every movement screaming of desperation. The fragile, secret connection they had just shared was brutally interrupted by his presence. A stark reminder of love turned sour. Caroline, who had been lurking in the shadows until now, stepped forward with a venomous glare that cut through the rising tension like a knife. "How dare you!" she spat, her voice laced with icy disdain. "You think you can just steal her away?" Her words were sharp, each syllable a lash that lashed at both Leonardo and Liam alike. The once gentle murmurs in the background gave way to a cacophony of raised voices, staccato bursts of emotion that shattered the remnants of peace. Leonardo's eyes narrowed, darkening with a fierce resolve that mirrored the storm brewing in the room. He stepped back, hands balling into fists as his gaze locked onto Liam, who now stood between him and the woman he both loved and desperately feared losing. The air crackled with tension, every heartbeat echoing with the promise of violence. Liam's voice, low and desperate, cut through the tumult. "Mira, please, don't do this." It was a plea filled with raw emotion, a cry for a past that had once been full of promise, but was now marred by regret and betrayal. In a flurry of motion, the delicate balance that had momentarily held between desire and duty collapsed. Caroline's eyes burned with jealous fury as she advanced further, her presence adding fuel to an already blazing fire. "You never cared about her," she accused, her words rapid and venomous. "You only wanted her to serve your twisted pride." The intensity of her voice, combined with the venom of her accusations, sent shockwaves through the room. Leonardo, usually so composed and enigmatic, now exuded a raw, unfiltered anger. His voice, deep and resonant, boomed through the hall as he retorted, "I love her, something you clearly can't comprehend." His tone was both an assertion and a challenge, a declaration that the passion he felt was not mere arrogance, but a profound, undeniable force. Liam's face contorted with conflicting emotions. Rage, hurt, and something softer, almost pleading, as he tried to shield her from the barrage of hostile words. The confrontation escalated with a dissonant rhythm. Quick, terse exchanges punctuated the charged air, a collision of hurt pride and desperate yearning. The sound of shuffling feet, clashing words, and the occasional harsh intake of breath filled the space, creating a symphony of disarray. Mira, caught in the crossfire, felt her heart splinter under the weight of their accusations. Her mind whirled with memories of what had been. A love that once seemed simple and true, now fractured by conflicting loyalties and bitter pasts. In one explosive moment, Liam stepped forward, his voice trembling with raw intensity. "How can you, Leonardo? How can you betray everything we once shared?" he demanded, his words echoing like a challenge across the room. Leonardo's eyes flashed dangerously, and for a heartbeat, time itself seemed to pause. Caroline's mocking laughter cut through the silence like a jagged shard of ice, her eyes glittering with a mix of triumph and malice. "She's been nothing but a pawn in your game, Leonardo," she sneered, her words dripping with scorn. Mira's internal struggle reached its zenith as she stood frozen between these two tormented souls. The room felt as if it were closing in on her. Every voice, every accusation, every pleading look converged to form an impenetrable wall of conflict. She longed to speak, to plead for calm, but her voice was lost amid the clamor. The intensity of the moment left her breathless, her very being suspended in the relentless storm of shattered bonds. Then, as if on cue, the tension reached a fever pitch. Leonardo took a step forward, his eyes burning with a mix of love and fury, and Liam's desperate expression turned to one of incredulity. Caroline's words hung in the air like a challenge, her silhouette poised for further confrontation. In that charged moment, the fragile unity that once held them together splintered completely, leaving the future of their tangled relationships hanging by a thread. With the echo of their voices still resonating in the silence that followed, a single, haunting question remained unspoken. Could any love survive this tempest of betrayal, jealousy, and unspoken pain? The answer lingered in the heavy air, a dramatic cliffhanger that left every heart pounding with the uncertainty of what fate had in store for them next. In the bitter silence that followed the explosive confrontation, the world seemed to crumble around her. The heavy echo of shattered bonds and accusing voices faded into a haunting stillness, leaving her with nothing but the raw, unfiltered weight of isolation. Determined to escape the relentless storm of conflict and betrayal, she fled the chaos and sought refuge in a small, secluded cabin at the edge of the wilderness, a place where solitude could cradle her wounded heart and offer a momentary reprieve from the relentless echoes of the past. Inside the cabin, dim light filtered through frost-edged windows, casting long, wavering shadows on rough-hewn wooden walls. Every creak of the floor and every whisper of wind outside served as a stark reminder of the world she had left behind. A world filled with intense, conflicting emotions and relationships, now fractured beyond repair. Here, the only sound was the steady rhythm of her own breathing, punctuated by the soft hum of the wind, as if nature itself mourned the loss of connection and trust. In the cramped, rustic solitude of the cabin, her heightened senses became both a curse and a guide. The sharp scent of pine and damp earth mingled with the lingering aroma of smoldering wood from a dying fire. Each inhalation was a visceral reminder of her transformation, a painful yet undeniable tether to the wild, unpredictable nature of her new existence. Her skin felt acutely alive to every touch of the cold air, every slight vibration in the silence, echoing the tumult within her heart. Alone with her thoughts, she sank onto a creaking wooden chair, her mind a labyrinth of regrets and unspoken questions. Leonardo's words still rang in her ears, a promise of safety, of transformation, yet also a reminder of a love that now felt distant and conflicted. Each memory, each whisper of his touch, mingled with the sting of betrayal and the acrid taste of loneliness. She found herself ruminating on the echoes of that fateful night, the tender intimacy of a kiss that once promised hope, now turned bittersweet by the venom of jealousy and fractured trust. Her inner turmoil was palpable, a raw wound that refused to heal. The absence of a familiar touch, once a comforting presence in moments of despair, now left a void that pounded in rhythm with her aching heart. Every passing minute in the isolation of the cabin deepened the internal chasm between who she once was and who she was being forced to become. The quiet introspection was unyielding, filled with self-recrimination for choices made, and a fierce yearning for a past that could never be reclaimed. Yet, amid the sorrow, a quiet determination began to kindle in the depths of her being. With every heartbeat, she resolved to rise above the searing pain of isolation and to find a way to reclaim her identity. The harsh reality of surviving alone, with instincts now heightened to a level both exhilarating and terrifying, was a daily reminder that her life had irrevocably changed. In this lonely refuge, every moment was an opportunity to understand the delicate balance between vulnerability and strength, between the fragility of the human heart and the relentless force of nature that now coursed through her veins. Her fingers traced the rough grain of the wooden table, each touch a silent meditation on loss and hope intertwined. The solitude was harsh, yet it offered a clarity that the cacophony of her previous life had obscured. In the quiet moments before dawn, as the first pale hints of light seeped through the cabin's narrow windows, she began to write in a battered journal, each word a cathartic release of the sorrow, anger, and confusion that had accumulated within her soul. The act of writing became both confession and confrontation, a means to parse the overwhelming emotions that had come to define her existence. She recalled Leonardo's fervent promises and Liam's desperate interventions, the lingering glances and whispered threats that had shattered the delicate peace of her former world. Amidst the pages, her thoughts flowed freely, a mixture of regret for not having listened sooner, and a stubborn determination to forge a new path. The solitude was both a prison and a crucible, forcing her to confront the raw, unyielding truth of her inner self. As the night slowly surrendered to the impending light of a new day, she felt a stirring of resolve deep within her heart, a poignant blend of determination and heartbreak. It was a fragile promise that, despite the isolation and the scars etched into her soul, she would endure. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with peril, but within the depths of that solitary cabin, she vowed to harness the power of her transformation and emerge stronger, even if the cost was the bittersweet relinquishing of a love that once defined her. The echo of her own whispered promise lingered in the stillness. She would survive, She would grow. And someday, perhaps, the shattered pieces of her heart would find a way to mend. The storm outside had grown relentless by the time the door creaked, open, letting in a rush of cold, driving rain. In that moment of fierce solitude, her heart nearly stopped when she saw Liam standing in the threshold, his soaked figure trembling slightly, his eyes heavy with a mixture of regret and desperation. For a long moment, the silence between them was broken only by the patter of rain and the steady hum of distant thunder, as if nature itself acknowledged the significance of his unexpected return. "Mira," Liam began, his voice quivering with emotion. His expression was raw, his eyes reflecting sorrow and a plea for forgiveness. The sight of him, drenched and disheveled, stirred conflicting memories in her, memories of shared laughter and intimate moments, of promises once made, in quieter times now marred by the chaos of recent events. A heavy weight pressed on her chest as she struggled to reconcile the man before her with the one she had once loved, and the one who had now retreated into the shadows of regret. She stood silently, torn between a natural urge to recoil from the pain of his past actions and a lingering spark of hope that perhaps the love they once shared could be mended. Her mind raced with questions. Could Liam's desperate apology truly be sincere? Was his return an earnest attempt to repair the fissures that had long divided their hearts, or merely another gesture in a pattern of unfulfilled promises? The internal turmoil waged a silent war inside her, its echoes mingling with the ceaseless roar of the rain. Liam took a cautious step forward, his wet clothes clinging to his skin, revealing a vulnerability that had long been concealed behind his stoic facade. "I'm so sorry, Mira," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, laden with the weight of regret. "I never meant to hurt you. I was lost, and I let my pride and fear get in the way of everything that mattered." His eyes, shimmering with unshed tears, sought hers desperately, as if begging for another chance, a chance to make things right. As his words washed over her like the relentless rain outside, she felt an unexpected rush of memories, the comfort of his quiet support in moments of despair, the steady calm in his embrace when the world was too overwhelming. And yet, even as her heart stirred with the faint echo of what once was, the magnetic pull of Leonardo's commanding presence and the promise of transformation lingered at the edge of her consciousness. Her mind was a battleground of loyalties, where the reliability of Liam's love contended with the fierce, enigmatic allure of Leonardo's protective strength. She turned inward, grappling with the quiet murmur of her own thoughts, a blend of regret for past missteps and an uncertain yearning for what might have been. Was Liam truly remorseful? Could his apology mend the fractured trust that had grown like a chasm between them? Yet, amid the swirling emotions, a part of her felt drawn to the steadfast safety that Leonardo's guidance had provided, a force that seemed to embody both her past vulnerability and her emerging power. Liam's hand reached out tentatively, and for a moment she allowed herself to feel the ghost of a once familiar warmth. His touch was hesitant yet earnest, a silent offer to bridge the gap between sorrow and forgiveness. "I want to explain everything," he murmured, his voice trembling with urgency. "There's so much you don't know. The mistakes I made, the pain I caused. I have spent every day regretting it, wishing I could go back and do things differently." His words, fragile and laden with the sorrow of lost time, hung in the air as the rain battered the windows, each droplet a reminder of the tears he had shed in lonely remorse. For a long, suspended moment, she considered the sincerity etched in his features, the exhaustion, the genuine contrition in his eyes. The possibility of mending old wounds flickered in the depths of her mind, even as the complexities of her heart remained unresolved. Yet the reunion was far from a tidy resolution. The weight of past betrayals and the tender scars of emotional neglect intermingled with the promise of renewal. As Liam's gaze held hers, She silently questioned whether the love they once nurtured could be resurrected, or if the wounds ran too deep to heal completely. The delicate balance between her aching past and an uncertain future trembled on the edge of possibility. In the charged silence that followed, as the rain tapered into a soft, rhythmic patter, a quiet, tentative hope began to take root. A fragile belief that perhaps, by embracing the truth of their shared pain and unspoken desires, they could find a way to forge a new path forward. The night, with its dark, mysterious allure, seemed to hold the promise of further revelations, a future where the tangled threads of their lives might finally be rewoven into something that could withstand the harsh light of truth. And so, as Liam lingered there, with his apology echoing in the quiet corners of her heart, she was left with a single, lingering question. Could the broken pieces of their past be reassembled into a future worth fighting for? Or was this chance reunion merely another twist in the labyrinth of her own conflicted destiny? In the dim light of the secluded room, the tension reached a breaking point as the long-suppressed emotions began to overflow. The silence, heavy with unspoken truths, was suddenly shattered by voices that trembled with a raw, desperate intensity. Mara stood at the center, her eyes brimming with conflicting feelings. Pain, longing, anger, and a flicker of hope, all intertwined in a delicate tapestry of emotion. Leonardo's gaze was steady, his voice low and measured, yet edged with undeniable urgency. "Mara," he began, his tone both tender and commanding, "you must understand that every moment without truth only deepens our wounds. I have tried to shield you from this torment, but we can no longer hide behind silence." His words cut through the charged air, each syllable carrying the weight of a love that had long been buried beneath layers of mistrust. Before Mara could respond, Liam stepped forward, his eyes glistening with unshed tears and a palpable sense of desperation. I've been lost in regret, Mara," he pleaded, his voice trembling as if each word was a confession of a lifetime of mistakes. "I know I hurt you, and I never meant to—" His sentence faltered as the raw emotion in his eyes spoke, louder than his words. "I only ever wanted you to know how deeply I care," he continued, voice cracking under the strain of his inner turmoil. Mira's heart pounded as the two men, representing different facets of her past and future, stood before her. Leonardo, the embodiment of fierce protection and transformative passion, and Liam, the gentle echo of what once was, a love that had withered under the strain of lost time. Her mind spun, the memories of tender moments and painful betrayals clashing in a tumult of desire and mistrust. "Leonardo, Liam, she began, her voice faltering under the pressure of the moment. "How can I ever reconcile these feelings? I'm torn between the safety of what I knew and the dangerous allure of something more, something I'm not sure I deserve." Her words were soft, yet each carried the sharp sting of heartbreak and uncertainty. Leonardo's expression softened, his eyes revealing a depth of emotion that mirrored her own internal battle. "Mara, my love for you is not a force to be tamed. It is wild, it is raw, and it is true," he said gently. "I have always seen you, not just with my eyes, but with every fiber of my being. I want you to embrace who you are becoming, to see that transformation not as a curse, but as a revelation of your strength." His voice was calm and soothing, yet the passion behind his words was undeniable. A love that sought to break through the barriers of fear and mistrust. Liam's tone, however, carried a distinct note of sorrow and pleading vulnerability. "And I cannot bear to see you hurt, Mara," he whispered, stepping closer as if to offer a final lifeline. "I know I have failed you, and I'm sorry, more than words can express. I only ever hoped that the love we shared could have been enough to heal all our scars." His eyes searched hers, desperate for a forgiveness that seemed as elusive as the fading light. caught in the crossfire of these raw confessions. Mara's heart ached with the intensity of unspoken desires and the heavy burden of the past. The room felt charged with electricity as her mind oscillated between the certainty of Leonardo's fierce devotion and the lingering tenderness of Liam's gentle sorrow. The air seemed to vibrate with every heartbeat, each throb echoing the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, the truth could set them free. Her voice, barely above a whisper, finally broke the overwhelming silence. I need to understand. How can I ever know which path leads to healing? Can our love, marred by mistakes and fear, truly mend the chasm between us? Or will we always be trapped in this cycle of longing and despair? Her question hung in the air, raw and unfiltered. A desperate plea for clarity in the midst of overwhelming emotion. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. Leonardo's eyes flickered with a mixture of determination and vulnerability, while Liam's expression wavered between hope and resigned sorrow. In that suspended moment, the boundaries between past and future blurred, leaving only the stark, painful truth of their intertwined hearts. And as the final echoes of their confessions faded into the night, the ultimate question remained unanswered. What will their true feelings reveal in the coming dawn? In the heavy silence that followed the confessions, a sudden shift in the atmosphere shattered the tentative calm. Leonardo's eyes, once soft with tender reassurance, now burned with a fierce intensity as he stepped forward. His voice, low and charged with raw emotion, cut through the charged air like a sharpened blade. Mara, how could you keep this hidden? He demanded, his words echoing with a mixture of anger and disbelief. All this time, your past with Liam. Why did you never tell me the truth? The accusation struck her like a physical blow. Her heart pounded painfully against her ribcage as the weight of his words pressed down on her. In that moment, every secret she had guarded, every whispered promise made in the dead of night, exploded into a cacophony of regret and sorrow. Leonardo, I never meant to hurt you, she stammered, her voice trembling as if she were trying to piece together shattered fragments of her soul. Yet her words felt inadequate, lost amid the rising storm of accusations. Leonardo's gaze sharpened, his expression hardening as he pressed on. Hurt me? Mira, you've deceived me. How can I trust someone who hides such truths? The man I see before me, my protector, my love, deserves honesty. I see the glimmer of your past in your eyes every time you think of Liam. Why, Mira? Why did you let that shadow linger? His tone was rhythmic, each syllable deliberate, his voice rising in a crescendo of raw, unfiltered emotion that reverberated through the cold stone walls around them. Her internal world spun wildly, a chaotic blend of fear, guilt, and fierce defiance. She felt the dual pull of two forces, the lingering tenderness of a past she had once known with Liam, and the commanding presence of Leonardo, whose own heart now beat with betrayal and hurt. I tried, she whispered, her voice barely audible as tears blurred her vision. I tried to forget, to move on. I thought I could leave that part behind, but it wasn't that simple. Her admission was a fragile, broken truth, a confession born of vulnerability and regret. Leonardo's face twisted with pain, his eyes narrowing as he searched her soul for answers. Leaving it behind isn't enough when it consumes you, he spat, his voice rising with rhythmic insistence. How many nights did you lie awake, torn between what you were and what you're afraid to become? How could you let those old wounds fester, hidden away, when I needed your truth to bind us together? Each word hit her like a hammer, shattering the fragile veneer of calm she had built over the recent days. The power dynamics shifted sharply as his hurt clashed with her inner turmoil, leaving both of them exposed and raw. In that volatile moment, Liam's presence loomed at the edges, his silence now a ghostly reminder of a love that had once been their safe harbor. Yet, his absence in this fiery confrontation only deepened the chasm between past and present, complicating the tangled web of emotions that now held her captive. I thought I could handle it on my own, she pleaded, voice wavering as she fought back tears. I believed that keeping it hidden would protect us, protect you from the pain of my mistakes. Her words, heavy with regret and desperation, were like a confession of her own. Yet they did nothing to stem the tide of Leonardo's fury. Leonardo's eyes softened for a brief, agonizing second, as if battling his own inner demons before the storm reclaimed his features. Mira, love is built on truth, not on secrets and silence, he murmured, his tone both admonishing and heartbreaking. I feel betrayed, not just by your lies, but by the parts of you that you refuse to let go. Can you truly move forward when shadows of the past still haunt your every step? His words, rhythmic and emphatic, pressed upon her like the relentless beat of a war drum. The room seemed to shrink around them as the confrontation reached its apex. The weight of every unspoken word, every buried memory, and every missed opportunity for honesty pressed down on her chest. Her eyes searched Leonardo's for a sign of forgiveness, for a glimmer of hope that this fissure could be healed. Yet, his gaze remained resolute, a mixture of love, hurt, and the unyielding demand for the truth. At that critical juncture, with the echoes of their heated exchange reverberating through the cold silence, Mira's heart trembled under the strain of conflicting loyalties. Could she ever reclaim her truth from the labyrinth of her hidden past? Would the raw, painful honesty that now lay bare between them be enough to mend the shattered bonds? Or was this confrontation the final fracture that would forever divide their intertwined fates? In the charged stillness that followed, as the night seemed to hold its breath, one question lingered, an open, desperate plea for redemption in the midst of heartbreak. Was there any way to reconcile the love that had once been with the unbearable truth that now threatened to tear them apart? In the still aftermath of accusations and shattered trust, Mira found herself alone with her thoughts, the heavy silence of the fortress room echoing her inner turmoil. Every beat of her heart pulsed with the weight of conflicting affections, a turbulent blend of past promises and present betrayals that pulled her in two irreconcilable directions. On one side was Leonardo, whose fierce, transformative love beckoned her to embrace a destiny beyond the fragile limits of human life. On the other, Liam, whose tender yet regretful devotion reminded her of a simpler time, a love that now felt as distant as a fading memory. Her mind became a battlefield where the voices of both men clashed. Leonardo's words, spoken in moments of passion and unyielding determination, urged her to claim her power and join the pack, promising safety and a future where her newfound instincts would bloom. His love, raw and all-encompassing, offered her a sanctuary where she could be reborn. Yet, his approach was relentless, his intensity a constant reminder that there was no turning back once she crossed that threshold. Then there was Liam, whose gentle remorse and lingering presence stirred the quiet corners of her heart. His apologies, heavy with regret, whispered of past intimacy. A love that was tender, though marred by mistakes and painful silence. With him, she recalled days when the world was simpler, when every shared smile was a promise of mutual care. But those moments now lay beneath layers of mistrust and unspoken pain, and the warmth of his memory was tinged with a sorrow that could never be fully erased. As night deepened, Mira withdrew into the quiet solitude of her private chamber within the fortress. Here, away from the storm of voices and accusations, she let herself truly feel the magnitude of her decision. Sitting by the window, watching the silver luminescence of the moon reflect off distant, still waters, she began to weigh the scales of love and survival. Every thought was a delicate balance between the desire to cling to what was familiar and the desperate need to forge a new path, one that could protect not only her, but also the life growing within her. Her inner monologue unfolded in a cascade of reflective, raw language. I am caught between the fierce promise of a love that transforms me and the tender echo of a past that once defined me, she whispered into the darkness. Leonardo offers me strength and a future bathed in the wild energy of the pack, but his love comes at a cost, a loss of the simple, quiet solace I once knew with Liam. And yet, I cannot ignore the responsibility I now carry, the little life that depends on me to find a way forward. Each word was a plea for clarity, for an answer that would reconcile the disparate pieces of her fractured heart. In that long, contemplative night, the memories of every whispered confession, every tender touch, and every harsh accusation swirled around her. The faces of Leonardo and Liam merged into a blurred canvas of emotion. Leonardo's intense gaze, his unwavering demand for truth, and the promise of a wild, unbounded future filled her with an exhilarating sense of possibility, even as it frightened her with its ferocity. Liam's gentle remorse, his soft, lingering caresses, and the bitter taste of regret that accompanied his every word reminded her of what was lost, and perhaps what could still be saved. The decision she faced was not merely about choosing between two loves, but about choosing a destiny. It was about reclaiming her identity from the confines of a life defined by secrecy and pain. It was about breaking free from the cycle of guilt and regret and embracing a future where she could clear her name and protect the child growing inside her. A future that demanded both strength and vulnerability, determination and compassion. In that quiet moment, as the moon carved pale shadows across the worn wooden floor, a resolute determination began to crystallize within her. I must choose not merely out of love for another, but out of love for myself and for the life I carry, she murmured, her voice steady despite the tremor of heartbreak. I will forge a path that honors all that I was, all that I am, and all that I must become. The weight of her decision pressed upon her like a mantle, both liberating and daunting. In the interplay of light and shadow, of past affections and future promises, Mira resolved to step forward into the unknown. The dawn of a new destiny beckoned, a destiny where the fragmented pieces of her heart might, in time, be mended into a whole that could withstand even the fiercest of storms. And as the first light of morning crept through the window, she silently vowed to reclaim her truth, to protect her child, and to face whatever trials lay ahead with a fierce, unyielding determination that would shape not only her fate, but that of the entire pack. At dawn's first light, the fortress stirred with a subdued but palpable energy, a collective breath held in anticipation of change. The pack, once fractured by betrayal and turbulent emotions, gathered in the grand assembly hall, its towering columns and ornate murals a silent witness to centuries of tradition. There was a tense, hopeful murmur among the gathered werewolves, an undercurrent of unity that promised renewal and healing. Leonardo stood at the front, his posture radiating quiet authority and renewed resolve. His eyes, reflecting the soft gold of the morning sun, bore the weight of his experiences. Each scar, each painful memory, now transformed into a badge of leadership. Today he would reassert his role as the true alpha, not through brute force, alone, but by embodying the values of protection, truth, and reconciliation that the pack so desperately needed. The air was thick with the memories of past conflicts, but also with the promise of a new beginning. With a calm but commanding voice, Leonardo addressed the assembly. "Brothers, sisters, and kin," he began, each word measured and resolute. "We stand on the threshold of a new dawn. Our past is marred by divisions and sorrow, yet it is in our power to mend these fractures. Today we reclaim our unity, our strength, and our destiny." His words resonated deeply, carried on the hushed whispers of the crowd, and slowly, a sense of purpose began to fill the room. Off to one side, Liam watched the proceedings with a mixture of reluctance and heartfelt support. His eyes, though still shadowed with the pain of past mistakes, now shone with a quiet understanding of the necessity for healing. For too long, he had harbored regret and remorse over the divisions his actions had sown. Today, however, he stepped forward, his voice soft but determined as he added, "I stand with Leonardo. Our journey has been one of hardship and loss, but I believe in the promise of redemption. Let us move forward, together." There was a sincerity in his tone that, despite his hesitance, lent weight to his declaration, easing the tension that had long divided their hearts. The pack members exchanged tentative glances, the fissures of old wounds slowly beginning to close as Leonardo and Liam united in purpose. Murmurs of agreement swept through the crowd, blending with the rising cadence of approval that filled the vast hall. Some nodded, others exchanged brief smiles of reassurance, small signs that the community was ready to embrace change. The air vibrated with the power of collective hope, each voice contributing to the chorus of a restored order. As the meeting progressed, Leonardo outlined a new path for the pack, a vision of leadership grounded in empathy, strength, and mutual respect. He spoke of the need for reconciliation, not only among the pack members, but also within the hearts of those who had once been torn apart by jealousy, mistrust, and lingering grief. His speech was filled with references to past trials, acknowledging the pain that had shaped them, yet urging them to look forward with courage and determination. "Our future," he declared, "is not defined by the shadows of our mistakes, but by the light we forged together." The decisive moment came when Leonardo extended a hand towards Liam in a gesture both symbolic and heartfelt. Though Liam's eyes still held traces of sorrow, he accepted the gesture, a silent, powerful act of reconciliation that resonated deeply with everyone present. It was a moment that transcended individual rivalries and personal regrets, marking the beginning of a new era where old wounds could finally start to heal. The space between them, once filled with unresolved tension and unspoken accusations, was now bridged by an unyielding desire to rebuild what had been lost. A hushed silence fell over the assembly as Leonardo's final words echoed through the hall. "Today, we stand united. Let our hearts be open to forgiveness, our spirits ready to embrace a future forged in strength and love." Then, as if on cue, the room erupted into a chorus of murmurs and cheers. The pack members, emboldened by the visible signs of unity and transformation, began to applaud, the sound rising like a tidal wave of acceptance that washed over the gathered crowd. In that resounding moment of collective joy, the old divisions, the bitterness of betrayal, and the lingering pain of fractured bonds began to dissolve. The hall, once shrouded in tension and uncertainty, now shimmered with the promise of a restored order, a new dawn for the pack, where every heartbeat resonated with the power of unity and redemption. Yet, as the cheers subsided and Leonardo's gaze swept over the renewed faces of his kin, a lingering question remained, a quiet, poignant query that echoed in the recesses of every heart present. Could this new beginning truly mend the deep scars of the past, or would the ghosts of old betrayals continue to haunt their fragile newfound unity? Under a sky streaked with the gentle hues of dawn, the grand assembly hall of the pack shimmered with an air of solemn celebration. Every heart in the room beat in unison, as if the very walls pulsed with the promise of new beginnings. Today was not just another day. It was the day when destiny would be declared, when love and leadership would converge in a ceremony that held both triumph and vulnerability. Leonardo stood before the gathered pack, his silhouette framed by the soft, diffused light filtering through ancient stained glass windows. His presence was magnetic. Every line of his face, every measured breath, resonated with the strength and sorrow of a man who had borne both loss and hope. As he raised his hand to address his kin, The room fell into a profound silence, as if nature itself was holding its breath. "My beloved pack," Leonardo began, his voice both deep and tender, echoing against the time-worn stone. "Today, I stand before you not only as your alpha, but as a man reborn through love and sacrifice. Our journey has been fraught with challenges, heartache, betrayal, and the pain of separation. But it has also been illuminated by the undeniable strength of our unity." His eyes swept over the gathered faces, meeting theirs with a steady, unwavering gaze. "I have come to understand that leadership is not merely about power or dominion, but about the ability to love, to forgive, and to build a future on the foundation of truth." There was a gentle tremor in his voice as he continued. "And so, with every fiber of my being, I declare that I will unite my destiny with that of my dearest Mara. Today, we pledge our lives to one another, a promise forged in the crucible of our shared trials and tempered by the hope of what lies ahead." The words hung in the air, delicate and potent, each syllable a testament to a love that had withstood the harshest tempests. As Leonardo spoke, Mara stood by his side, her heart a tumult of emotion. Her eyes, shimmering with both joy and sorrow, reflected the gravity of the moment. For her, this declaration was a merging of past regrets and future aspirations, a poignant acknowledgement of all that had been lost and all that was yet to be won. In that moment, the personal sacrifices, the painful decisions, and the enduring hope that had carried her through the darkness converged into a singular, transformative truth. Leonardo's voice grew even more resolute as he continued. "I claim not only the honor of being your alpha, but also the privilege of being your partner in life. With Mara by my side, we shall guide this pack to a future where every heart is valued, where every scar tells a story of resilience, and where the legacy of our people is built on both strength and compassion." His declaration resonated deeply, stirring a murmur of approval that began to rise like a tide among the pack members, their voices merging into a single hopeful chorus. In that climactic moment, the tension of past conflicts seemed to ebb away, replaced by a fragile yet undeniable sense of unity. The room itself seemed to exhale, the oppressive weight of old grievances lifting as the crowd witnessed the heartfelt union of two souls determined to defy the odds. Even as lingering doubts and unhealed wounds remained, the ceremony promised the possibility of mending what had once been broken. Leonardo's gaze shifted to Mara, and in the quiet space between, his words and her silent nod, an unspoken dialogue of hope, regret, and unwavering commitment passed between them. "Together," he said softly, almost as a prayer, "we shall face the challenges that lie ahead. Our journey will not be free of pain, but it will be filled with love, a love that is fierce, compassionate, and true." His voice, imbued with both triumph and vulnerability, left an indelible mark on every heart present. As the final echoes of his declaration faded, the hall erupted into a spontaneous outpouring of approval. The pack members rose in unison, their cheers a jubilant affirmation of the restored order and the promise of a united future. Amid the clamor, Mara's eyes glistened with unshed tears, a silent acknowledgement of both the beauty and the burden of the path she now chose to tread. Yet, as the rapturous celebration swelled around her, a quiet, persistent question lingered in the depths of her heart. Amid the promise of this new beginning, can the wounds of the past ever truly be healed? Would the fierce love that now bound her to Leonardo withstand the inevitable challenges and lingering doubts? Or would the ghosts of bygone betrayals continue to cast their long shadows over their destiny? In that charged moment, as the dawn heralded a new era for the pack, the future remained as mysterious as it was hopeful. A destiny yet to be fully written, with every heartbeat of love and every tear of sorrow promising that the journey ahead would be as complex as it was transformative. In the soft, lingering light of a waning day, Mira sat quietly in her modest room at the edge of the fortress, surrounded by memories that had both shattered and rebuilt her spirit. The final moments of this chapter of her life had arrived, and with a trembling determination, she began packing the few belongings that had become her sanctuary over these turbulent months. Each item, a faded photograph, a delicate piece of jewelry, a handwritten note, carried echoes of both past sorrows and gentle promises of renewal. Her fingers moved slowly over each object, as if reluctant to disturb the fragile balance between loss and hope. Outside, the sound of the wind whispered through the ancient trees, carrying with it the bittersweet murmur of days gone by and the faint promise of a new dawn. In that solitude, Mira's thoughts swirled around the faces of those she had loved and lost, and those who still lingered in the corners of her memory. Leonardo's fierce declarations of love and unwavering resolve, mingled with Liam's soft, regretful apologies, danced before her eyes, each a reminder of the tumultuous journey that had led her here. As she folded a worn, hand-stitched scarf and placed it carefully in her bag, a tender melancholy enveloped her. This was not merely a farewell to a place, but to a part of herself. A chapter defined by the fierce struggle between love and duty, between the old world of fragile human connections and the wild, unyielding call of her new destiny. The room was bathed in a gentle glow, and in the quiet moments before the final goodbye, Mira allowed herself a fleeting smile, a silent acknowledgement that despite the heartbreak, a spark of hope had managed to take root. Outside her door, soft, voices exchanged final farewells. Leonardo, standing in the dim corridor, his eyes glistening with unshed tears, offered her a last, lingering touch. A gentle squeeze of her hand that spoke of promises yet unfulfilled and redemption that still lay on the horizon. "You will find your way, Mira," he whispered, his tone both commanding and compassionate. "And know that my heart will always be with you." His words, heavy with love and burdened by past regrets, stirred something deep within her, a subtle reassurance that even in parting, they were forever bound by the threads of fate. In another corner of the fortress, Liam offered a quiet, sorrowful nod, a final acknowledgement of the shared past that, despite its pain, had helped shape the person she was becoming. His departure was silent, leaving behind a space filled with the echo of his gentle presence, a reminder of love that was lost but not entirely forgotten. The pack, having witnessed the tumult and reconciliation, now stood united in a solemn pact for a future built on resilience and understanding. As Mira closed the door behind her, the cool night air greeted her with a sense of bittersweet liberation. She stepped into the courtyard one last time, her eyes lifting to a sky streaked with the gentle colors of twilight. The stars began to emerge, shy and distant, yet they shone with an unwavering promise, a promise that even the darkest nights could give way to dawn. Her heightened senses, still learning to discern the subtle whispers of nature, detected a lingering warmth, a final echo of Leonardo's presence that promised redemption, even as uncertainty remained. In that poignant moment, as she took one last look at the fortress that had borne witness to her transformation, Mira felt a stirring of determination. Her heart, battered by love and duty alike, now beat with a resolute hope to forge a future where she could finally reconcile the fragmented pieces of her identity. Could she wondered silently, mend the chasm between the tender memories of the past and the wild, promising call of what was to come? The gentle rustle of the wind seemed to answer in a language of its own, as if urging her forward into the unknown. With her belongings packed and the echoes of parting words still resonating softly within her, Mira took a deep, steadying breath. The path ahead was uncharted, a tapestry yet to be woven with threads of sorrow, passion, and a resilient kind of hope. As she turned to leave, a single, lingering question danced at the edge of her thoughts. A question as delicate and profound as the night itself. Can the scars of the past ever truly be healed? Or will the echoes of lost love continue to guide her steps into an uncertain future?